PTV, oberoende, piratistisk media, skapad och finansierad av tittarna.
Hello everyone. Oh wait, hang on. I need to take that away. The old camera, go away. Beautiful. Welcome to yet another episode of PTV International. Hi. Let me just make sure I get the chat up here so I can see what you're trying to type. Egenpräktig is probably sitting in... Are you sitting in both chats? You madman? Mira is streaming some games at the same time as this, so we have some competitions. Let's say the least. But we are having a little bit earlier episode, and probably a pretty quick one too. I guess both Knackt was scuffed by a day and also scuffed by by other things. And this one, we'll just try to keep it, I guess, in an hour or so, right?
Yeah, this one is scuffed by association.
Yeah, scuffed by association. Everything is scuffed. This week is ruined. Everything is gone. Are we gonna do the English? Yes. Correct. We will do English for this one. I think actually there's a lot of things that happened. Last time we were talking, we really deep dived a little bit into the climate stuff. And I think today we can do a little bit the opposite. There's a lot of European related news and world related news and kind of geopolitical news that I don't think we have to deep too much into. Maybe the border crisis is something we can deep. We could probably go through quite a lot of those and just have, just initial thought and make sure that everyone is updated. I think one of the biggest things actually that is happening a little bit under the radar is a lot of stuff happening in China or around China, but that doesn't get a lot of press, right? One of the things is that Alibaba and 6 major stocks is going to be delisted. U.S. securities regulators have started a 3-year countdown that will force China stocks to delist from American stock exchanges. The 6 biggest Chinese stocks awaiting delisting from U.S. exchanges have combined market capitalization of more than $1 trillion, according to the latest financial data. And it's a part of this kind of decoupling, not from actually buying things from China, but rather decoupling the financial systems in general. That is happening. And it's worth to, keep an eye on as China is kind of closing in on itself. So the West is doing the same thing, essentially. And yeah, I mean, it's just on that, on the kind of road to, I guess probably put it some form of financial escalation. Kalla kriget, yes, the Cold War 2.0, you could say that it's looking a lot like. At the same time, FBI raids Florida office of Chinese credit card reader firm suspected of helping cyber attacks in US and EU, while Biden bans Chinese phone carriers for spying. And we've seen this before. A lot of these companies are now, also the products are getting banned, particularly from different sorts of Chinese firms. And this sort of, you can say it's a corporate war as well, right? It's a war for the domination where the West has been completely dominant. Like we've forced our companies, or most commonly US companies, to be the market leader in most countries that we've traded with. China's refused to do that, particularly in terms of the tech, right? But this type of war is escalating. The sort of kind of, maybe the Cold War 3.0 is going to be more of a corporate war where the military is privatized, a large parts of it anyway, and the military industry anyway is playing all sides in a way, and you'd have this form of corporations that are taking sides in the war.
Yeah, we have these nice mega corporations that rival many countries in power and influence. We're in for a ride.
It won't be the way. I mean, the war is already here in many ways. Like we have a lot of conflicts, I was looking at 40,000 people. I mean, it's going to be an extreme amount of people dying in war this year because of Yemen mostly, but also Afghanistan.
Yeah, these like private contractors have been involved for ages.
Yeah.
In the Middle East. other places.
Yeah. So yeah, and exactly. I mean, and this is probably going. This is one of the many conflict areas, but it's interesting to see how corporations are being used now, because I mean, in previous larger type of wars, the corporations was really national in terms of where they were producing and where the stock, where their owners were. Whereas that's not the same at all. Like the big finance is kind of above everything, right? And can, as we say, play all sides or no sides as they want. And some of them have no option but to align with a particular country, whereas others do. The only thing that's for sure is that it's not the rich who's gonna be paying the price for these conflicts. That's just never the case. Has never been the case. Will never be the case. At the same vein, kind of Fortnite is shutting down in China. I thought it was kind of... It's a little bit typical on this. China limits the amount of time minors can play online, but also there's a lot of these sort of regulations that are turning into making Chinese youth to become men and female, male, female, be soldier, that sort of stuff. And they actually banned Fortnite, which is...
Yeah, and this isn't even like I mean, I guess they haven't been letting like any Western companies have like entirely free reign with their products, especially like the big games. Like they have been controlling, exercising some kind of influence over like content of games. Like there's the famous like early World of Warcraft examples, for instance, and the like, and like with other forms of media as well. But like this is again isn't like the ownership behind there like Epic.
Yeah, Epic
partnership with Tencent. Isn't Epic Games owned by the Chinese as well?
Yeah, they own a 40% stake in Epic.
So this isn't just crackdown on like Western players. They actually cracking down, as we've discussed here before, on the gaming industry.
Yeah, it's a crackdown on any form of social or what they would call, Western values, right? Or weakening social values.
Degeneracy.
Yeah, degeneracy type stuff. I mean, it's the same language that is used kind of globally. It's interesting that they're so hard on it, and also it's pretty clear that the big difference is here that China, to a certain effect, is not corporatist, right? I mean, they don't give a shit. Like if Tencent loses loads of money for this, they don't care. And they showed that with the Evergrande company as well. They have no problems in letting these corporations fail, right? So they have a much, much more hardline approach. There's probably not... They won't let China be dominated by these corporations, which is, interesting.
By many of the corporations, they're being so huge that they aren't exactly like touched that badly by even like major products shutting down entirely or major services. And yeah, again, like they aren't as beholden to the companies or corporations in like securing their profits or something, so they can just go ahead and do this kind of thing. But
and like you'd have West on one side.
Like they are shutting it down there, but they still have the ownership of it, and it's still running elsewhere. So it's just one market. They are just shutting the unpleasant influences out of their market and letting everyone else eat that shit.
Yeah, I mean that's not their business. What other countries do?
There is the whole, this is ruining the youth. Like they aren't exercising, they aren't studying, they aren't doing the things they should be because they play games, or like I don't know, maybe they're forming like. Maybe communities are being formed on those games, using those games as platforms. That's a documented thing, definitely. Like, it was even before the pandemic hit, but especially after, like, digital spaces used by youth to just congregate and socialize and bond. This isn't just like real. I mean, it was never, as we pirates or pirate-minded people know, it was never just the digital world and the real world. They've been the same for many people, and increasingly many people in the past decade or so. So, like, there are many possible reasons, but at least one, I mean, the official ones in China, I believe, were the effect on youth, and also the basically loot boxes being gambling. Like, that's a big one, and that's also a legitimate one. Something we will probably see some kind of reaction to in the West in the near future as well. And the gaming industry is going to be fucked, since the entire thing runs on microtransactions, many of which run on these loot box type models, which are essentially gambling.
Maybe.
Gambling that mostly targets young people, and also neuroatypical people, or people with issues that can be exploited by these addictive mechanisms.
I mean, you could have a positive view and say that's good. It's good for the youth. They should be not playing computer games, and they should not learn. I mean, but I like, and they should,
I mean, you
do
can
exercise and read Xi
You
Jinping's
can
words.
regulate the business models without actually banning games, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, when it comes from the sort of things where they're also taking away Chinese as a language, making it much harder for any form of education in general, and streamlining it, it's a I think it's, at least it's pretty clear what they're doing. But it's interesting to see, because whereas we in the West let the companies decide the wars, right, to a certain extent, right, we let them run our countries to another degree. China's taken a very, very strong stance that the government is king, right? The corporations such as Alibaba, right, which kind of started I mean, he just said mild things politically, like it's good if our education system gets renewed, and he's gone, for a year, right? I mean, it's like they are very, very clear on who is in charge. Let's put it like that. And it's to that extent, I think it's like, I mean, it's horrible, right? All of this shit is the extremely wrong way. But I mean, I think also, like, it's just sort of the way it is. China's way of mobilizing is a little bit is very different from the mobilization of the West, and particularly US, which seems to be very passive in terms of, like, it's more led by companies rather than by the government, if we put it like that. And I don't think that's going to play in West's. I mean, that's not going to mean any advantage from here, right? Ultimately, but I guess we will see.
What's going to be an advantage?
It's not good to let these companies decide these things. I mean, the lack of unity, like, if we are, and it seems like we are, going into a new Cold War, letting corporations global and a sort of global elite have so much influence over it, right? And not having strong states that makes decisions, right? By having a lot of private companies that are actively that can play any side for profit is probably not the best way.
Have people actually rooting for companies and bonding with companies and attaching their identities, companies or individual products. So, like, there are some let's say interesting ways this could start playing out, and if the corporations that actually start flexing muscle and, like, going against, say, these state level actors that are perceived in other parts of the world, or even, like, in their area of influence in their territory as being on the wrong side or in the wrong on something. If it's corporations playing hero, people are going to start looking to the corporations to save them, and that's just a really bleak image.
Yeah, and that's probably what the West is going to be, I think, in this. But it's interesting.
Real
We'll see.
cyberpunk here.
Yeah. Release Afghan money or
we don't get the cool aesthetics. It's just the shitty parts. It's not Blade Runner. It's Blade Crawler.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not even Blade. It's like I don't know, Coca-Cola crawler, Facebook crawler. Release Afghan money or face mass migration. Taliban warns Europe. This is a little bit old news, but it's worth to maybe do. I mean, we locked up all of their funds, right? Essentially, and as we will see in a lot of our news, migrants are being used as a political tool. I mean, it's not the first time, but it's being used in a more type of nefarious way. And it's hard to say. I mean, like, we are literally now starving out Afghan and holding their cash, like holding money that belongs to the Afghan government. And yeah, I'm not sure. Like, there are so many facets to this, such as the war on drugs and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not sure what they expect. What do they expect the Afghan Taliban? I mean, you may not like the Taliban. What do you think is going to happen now? Right? Like, we're actually watching a documentary about the tradition. Well, tradition, where poor farmers are having to sell off their daughters, right, to the military leadership because they can't survive. I mean, we are kind of building for another humanitarian crisis in a land that's gonna be even more radicalized, of course. A little short bit on that, perhaps.
But then, unfortunately, like, we're maybe setting a dangerous precedent here, saying things like this, but it seems, based on this article, that the Taliban is actually right here. Like, bad things are going to happen. It's probably not within their, like, somewhat limited state power to actually prevent, like, you know, mass starvation or mass migration. Anyway, so further hampering, like, any kind of, like, economic activity there is not necessarily. It's probably not going to result in anything good.
No. I mean, you're starting it out with saying "fuck you," and that's a country.
Another in a long line of examples where, like, the points in time when we had good options left are pretty far behind us.
Yeah, and we're making every sort of decision based on this. Well, on one hand, punish them. On another hand, no immigrations, no, you know. I mean, there's nothing good that can come out of this treatment of them. And there was another news that's worth saying a little bit. It turns out that large parts of the Afghan army were just ghost soldiers. They were not even soldiers. That was just pure bribes and corruption. That was also orchestrated by the US. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to run to the door. Hang on, just a second.
Someone's come to collect him. It's finally happening.
Okay. Sorry about that. Timing is never good. I'm knocking on the door.
Good. It's just good that you weren't, like, disappeared.
Yeah, disappeared for
Would have been awkward.
yeah, just
Would have
leaving
been
you
very
here.
hard to keep up the show and like keep entertaining people. I can't even control the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I'm just leaving you here for you can handle an hour, right? I'm off now. gotta do stuff.
showing up a few hours later, I swear I'm fine. Nothing happened. Don't ask. Don't ask.
Yeah, exactly.
don't ask.
We will never talk about this again.
The VOD will not be forthcoming.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder what we'd have to have some alternate entertainment. We could always run a little bit some of our videos actually, but whatever. It's just
I didn't even have my camera on. Like I've been. I don't have a whiteboard with me right now, but I've been planning on getting one since I actually have the space for it. So maybe for the future, like I have to have the camera on so I can start like
drawing things. Yeah, it turns into another type of stream. Do you want to talk about Finnish press freedom, by the way?
We can take a look. The actual case it's about, like it's now going to court. Yeah, there's prosecution now. But the actual case, was in 2017. So I actually don't remember most of the details. So if you'd like to read the article, feel free to.
Sure. A story published in 2017 revealed some details about the Finnish military's intelligence service. The deputy state prosecutor has filed charges against 3 Helsingin Sanomat employees over an in-depth look at intelligence facility located in central Finland. The 3 have been charged with disclosure of state secrets or attempted disclosure of state secrets. The offences carry a maximum sentences of 4 years in prison. However, it is unlikely that a non-suspended jail term would be imposed. The pre-trial investigation found that HS had not used illegal means to acquire the documents, so the charges related to the publication of the information they contained. Kalle Silverberg, wow, that's sounds like a Swedish-Finnish name if I ever heard one, who at the time headed up the police desk at HS, and reporters Laura Halmainen and Tuomo Pettiläinen are the journalists facing prosecution. They have all denied charges. Silverberg and Halmainen declined to comment on the prosecution, while Yle was unable to reach Pettiläinen. The paper's editor-in-chief, Kaus Neimia, and other editor, Esa Mäkinen, were also suspected of crimes but don't face prosecution. Prosecutors said it was unclear whether either of them had advanced knowledge of the story's content. So it's a little bit similar to, the Assange story is a little bit bigger, but am I getting it kind of right? The journalists are being prosecuted for uncovering news, essentially.
Yeah, and I think information that was arguably public anyway, or something that should be available at request to the public anyway. So, and there was this whole debacle about it back when it came out. I think some of the journalists' homes were raided pretty soon after it.
Mm.
Like they actually went pretty hard on it. And this isn't exactly an everyday case in Finland. So it's going to be interesting to see what follows.
Yeah. This is an interesting case to follow up on.
A ton of other news recently. So this has kind of been conveniently buried for the most part.
Yeah.
I'll have to check some Finnish security policy people. They are probably talking about this.
No, we're seeing a lot of these kind of small cases, but that are because we see. The Assange case kind of sets precedence in a lot of different ways for that press freedom isn't really something that is that important anymore. So I think, and we will see more and more of those cases. Also, kind of as we're ramping up a little bit, that's kind of typical, right? No, we say nothing. This is secret. Maybe we should talk about what was the Russian shenanigans?
It was something linked to us pretty much when we started the stream by Granny Stuta, I think.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I think it's linked to the Belarus thing, right? So we could take that. We'll end with all of that stuff.
It's linked to Russia, so arguably also to Belarus.
Yeah, and we can actually take Ukraine in there too. And move ahead. I'm skipping some stuff because it's just... it's going to be too bleak otherwise. We're going to need a eye bleach. Like massive eye bleach at some point. But we could talk a little bit about scuffed climate stats.
I said everything is scuffed.
Yeah, fucking scuffed shit.
This week, forever.
Yeah. It turns out, as Washington Post reports, that countries are seriously underreporting their emissions, and which is obviously a little bit of a problem.
Meaning, if I recall correctly, they do state it in this article, I think, but it's in the ballpark of like a major industrialized country, like the total emissions of a major industrialized country or something, the amount that they're like getting it wrong, basically.
Yeah.
So it's not like insignificant. And also the sources, or basically what makes up these emissions that are getting reported wrong, probably underreported, or just like anything shady or just questionable going on with the data. 60% of that, or 59 to be exact, was from the manner in which countries tally emissions from land, which I take to mean land use. Since the examples, for instance, Malaysia with the palm oil plantations on former wetlands, former peatlands, it's the peat again, and also Canada with its deforestation. This sounds worryingly familiar from a Nordic perspective.
Yeah,
like if there are if Canada and Malaysia are up to something funny with their forests and wetlands, it's pretty safe to say that like Sweden and Finland, for instance, may be cutting some similar, maybe not the same corners, but still at least making some interesting choices in reporting the data on ours. Basically, the estimates of how much carbon is sequestered or bound by these forests or these swamps.
Yeah, I mean, I could read this part, right, to kind of get an idea of what is this, the one Canada part. Canada loses more old-growth forest to deforestation, driven in large part by American consumption of toilet paper, interestingly enough, every year than any country except for Russia and Brazil. But some 80 million metric tons of emissions released by clear-cutting a boreal forest aren't counted in Canada's official emissions report to the UN, Schmidt said, citing a 2021 NRDC report, because Canada is operating under the assumption that the trees will grow back. There is no guarantee that that will happen at the speed and scale reflected in Canada's accounting.
And this is like, well, if you'll excuse the pun, bog standard nonsense.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to land use accounting, basically, like emissions accounting. Accounting
what is
this is what you always get. Like they are operating under the assumptions that trees grow back. It's okay if we hack down this like 100-year-old forest.
That's a renewable source.
They grow back. It's all part of the natural cycle, right?
Never
mind that we've been like hacking away at the forests and like reducing forest cover to an extent that like we're nowhere near like any kind of like semi-natural balance that may have existed like maybe hundreds of years ago, or arguably even like thousands of years ago.
No, and it's a little bit frustrating. What I'm surprised at more here is that actually what we're basing a lot of these climate models on then are officially governmental data that isn't being properly checked. And that's what they're talking about here too, that the UN is going to need to actually have independent, they're going to have to get their own metrics in and not trust the governments, because essentially they're starting to find that they're
layer of evaluating them. I mean, I'm sure there is something like
they're probably getting the
going
worst
on already,
stuff,
but they are probably going to need more resources.
Yeah.
And well, the
They're not getting
UN
that,
has
though.
probably never had enough resources, but like if you've ever been to, say, the headquarters in Geneva, the building's kind of old. It's not in great condition. And like various, for instance, IGF, the Internet Governance Forum, which is, I think, some remote parts of it are underway right now, and the live one will be in Poland, Katowice, next month. That's also a UN-mandated conference, and as long as I've been attending those and aware of those, they've almost on a yearly basis had some issues finding the next host country. It's been kind of like a rare, like it's been the exceptional occasion that they've known for sure which country will be hosting it the next year, like during the previous year's conference.
Yeah. I mean, the UN has very little influence.
We could be maybe giving them more to work with, especially when it comes to such an important thing as climate. And also from a pirate point of view, such an important thing as the internet. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, pretty much instantly after the UN was formed, the US decided, fuck the UN. We're going to have a G8 meetings where we make decisions. I mean, it's the same. Like the UN has been repeatedly fucked by mostly the West, who've chosen to do things outside of the UN, and the UN is also fucked because its fundamental flaws in terms of representation as well. I mean, it's a big issue, but we could probably have
just the institutions aren't maybe up to. Just the, I don't know, the control and like monitoring of the organizations probably, or the way they're structured. There are probably some serious issues there, given like the repeated cases of like serious cases of like various forms of abuse, or at least abuse of power, turning up in UN agencies.
Yeah, exactly. Before we move...
Can I point out something there?
Yeah,
sure.
So my experience with meeting and speaking to people in the UN when I was living in Geneva is that they're all from a different social class than who they're supposed to be representing, because almost the only way into the UN is to go via internship, which is unpaid, and then get an offer as a temporary worker to then potentially get a fixed contract and then start working with humanitarian rights, for instance, or whatever you are passionate about. So it's a very, very niche group of society that gets to work for the UN, especially from developing nations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm nodding here. You can't see him, but I'm nodding here since this is exactly how it is. It's like stereotypically a US thing, but it's honestly everywhere. Like in many places, as we all know, the meme is that you need 5 years of experience in the sector in order to get an entry-level job. And this is increasingly true everywhere. And also these unpaid or very poorly paid internships are very common. And the real effect of those is exactly as you said. Only people who can afford to go, like, unpaid for quite a while to get that experience and get the foot in the door, as they say, can actually have some shot at making a career out of it. And this also extends to, especially I think in the US and in the Anglosphere, to the non-governmental organization, like the entire so-called third sector.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And add to that their actual real influence is fucked to start with, in a way. Not saying that it necessarily would be a lot better if they had a lot of influence. I mean, you're getting these sort of issues. I'm thinking we need to I bleach a little bit before we go to the EU border situation and talk about that a little bit, which is a large developing news story right now, obviously. I have a good video for iBleach, but you're not going to be, you need to watch the stream to see it, because I can't open it. It's like a video file. Well, we'll have a look.
And cats, they're not usually known for their love of swimming, but one feline in Northern Virginia is hitting the water instead of the gym in an effort to lose weight. Holly is a 13-year-old cat who dislikes the outdoors and other physical activities, but with encouragement from her owner and weekly visits to the Old Town Pet Resort. Holly has managed to lose 1 pound in 6 weeks. Stay with us, everybody. We've got a lot more to come.
I really like her reaction. Can't read the story. The poor cat, look at it, so fat. It's so wet. It's such a sad story. Oh. All right, now we're ready.
maybe we shouldn't be fat shaming even cats.
No.
Yeah, that's a pretty classic one.
Poor cat. At least
Poor
it gets
cat.
to swim.
Seriously, imagine getting made fun of in
Yeah,
front of like millions.
exactly. And it looks like
Evening news audience.
it looked like it was aware of
Your
it. It's just
struggles
like,
are being broadcast, and the person there is just laughing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I find her laughter because she can't contain it. She's like, can't even read the story anymore. Oh yeah, and that look. Please don't take a photo. Oh, you did it, didn't you? I was looking at the cat. Let's have a look. I mean, so I think most people are aware that there is a big issue going on. I mean, this is actually not really new that migrants are being used this way. Hungary used them pretty much the same way, and it's been used between nationalist governments who essentially just busing migrants through their country, breaking all forms of international laws, doing it, and using them as political tools. Right, this is happening all over Europe and Turkey and all of that stuff. But we've had a new situation arise on the Polish border. But it's not only the Polish border, and that's worth to say. It's also the Lithuanian border, which is also a kind of increasing the tensions. And I was thinking we could just look a little bit at this video about the Lithuania building the first European wall border to ward off migrants from Belarus. And I don't think that's the first European wall, to be honest. We'll see.
Lithuania has built the first stretches of a steel wall on its border with Belarus since migrants from the Middle East and other areas began entering from Belarus this year. The European Union accuses Belarus of deliberately encouraging the migrants to enter EU states Poland, Lithuania and Latvia via Belarusian territory as a way of putting pressure on the bloc. Belarus has repeatedly denied this, but its president, Alexander Lukashenko, has said his country would no longer stop the migrants since EU sanctions drain resources. All 3 EU countries have put stretches of razor wire on the border to stop the migrants. Last week, Lithuania began putting up the first stretches of the 11-foot-high steel fence, topped with razor wire. Virgilius Raugale is a border guard commander.
It's probably impossible to build a totally impassable obstacle, so I think this barrier too could be overcome. But that would take a long time and we would be able to react.
Lithuania wants to build 300 miles of the wall by September next year, supplemented by coiled razor wire and video surveillance. In August, Lithuania started sending almost all entering migrants back to Belarus. More than 5,600 migrants have been prevented from entering since then, the border guard said. Poland's defence ministry, meanwhile, said on Thursday Belarusian soldiers had threatened to open fire on Polish troops just across the border, in what it called an attempt to escalate a crisis over migrants along their common frontier.
Yeah, and this tension is kind of increasing, right? So it's a really shit situation.
First European wall sounds kind of like not credible. Maybe they're the first country to admit to building like systematically putting up walls or something.
I mean, they just did it on the Polish border as well. I mean, before. I don't know. It's just a weird. That's a
Maybe
weird
they're having
statement.
a competition, like who gets there first.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's nothing. I mean, what's in a way is new here, because this happened within. I mean, this is why why the migrant crisis in Europe became so fucking chaotic, was partly because we didn't follow, and the countries who were supposed to, you know, we couldn't unite and actually try to solve this problem as EU unified. We couldn't have a common border, and people were just shipped through countries, essentially, or forced through countries, and refused asylum. So, I mean, basically, when you're arriving in a country, you're supposed to be able to apply for asylum in that country, right? No matter where you're going to end up later, maybe you get sent home, or you can relocate to another country, something that we could arrange. But what these typically right-wing governments do is they refuse to let people do this. This is exactly the same as what's happening in the US, right? So they won't allow people to actually be registered in the country. So they're just ghost people that you essentially can do whatever you want with, because they don't exist, right? These people have no existence. And that's true also how they're being used. And now they're being used as a political tool. And I mean, to a certain extent, you could understand that. Like, I mean, this is kind of the shady deal that we have with Turkey, right? Which is, well, we'll look the other way as long as you don't let immigrants pass through your country, right?
Yeah, all of this is so tiresome. Like what Putin, like what did Putin mean by this? What did Russia mean by this? Like, you'd imagine, and I like to imagine, that everyone in Europe, or who pays any attention to what goes on here, knows already perfectly well that, like, the point of Putin's foreign policy when it comes to, well, us here in Europe, is to just cause disorder and, like, destabilize the region. And the measures, like the way he gets there, is kind of secondary often. Just like cause confusion, make them turn against each other, and make them squabble, so they're not paying maybe as much attention to what you happen to be up to. Like, this is very obvious, and this has been the only kind of clear thread to the shit Russia has been pulling. And yet, there are people going like, yeah, he wants to let this invasion force, or he's sending this invasion force to into our countries. Like, no, seriously. Nobody who's like to any extent involved in politics is that daft. Like, no, nobody. Like, they're just, at this point, it's just obvious that they are just latching on to a convenient narrative and ignoring what's actually going on. Like, Putin's goal is for people to pull the kind of fits that the nationalists and some so-called like centrists are pulling over this. Like, that's their goal. That's the goal. It's not getting those people into Europe. It's just the political mess that he's after. And these people are really happy, like way too happy to give him it.
Yeah. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to see the reactions to this. I mean, what I'm seeing is just the typical way when you have a nationalists governments, right? I mean, they can kind of feed off each other, and because if you have and you can be strong, we are not letting in those immigrants. Like, this is what happens when you don't let people do this, right? What are you gonna do? Well, you're gonna have to bust them out of your country, right? That's what you do. So you drop them somewhere else and force them to go over a border to another country. I mean, this is the effect of what we have been doing inside Europe, but a little bit nicer. This is the next level of that sort of treatment of people. And also naturally using them to gain a political upper hand. Because to the people at home, you can say, hey, look at us, we're being good. Look, we're shipping it to these fucking soft-hearted liberal left countries. They can take them. We don't want them, right? Fuck them, you know? And you can be strong.
I agree that we did bring this upon ourselves. Like, we have been, like, demonstrating how we'll deal with it, or basically how we refuse to deal with it. And that's why this is working. But again, I still maintain that there is no reason for the entirety of Europe or the EU to be like shitting their pants over like what is the maximum of like a few hundred people.
No, exactly.
Like,
and
we could handle that. We could totally handle that.
Yeah,
and then Putin and his friends would have to regroup and like swallow the just be grumpy about it for a while, and they then maybe try it again. But that would be like, we would have a while to, I guess, prepare or something. Like, we could show them like, this is not going to move us. Like, fuck you, we don't give a shit, like, send them over here, we can deal with it. But no. Apparently we're not, like, most of Europe is not choosing to do that.
No, I mean, like, this is kind of the whole point. We could in Europe, like, deal with it as unified and have a policy where we let people seek asylum by the border, you know? And then either they're accepted or they're not. Maybe they'll get sent back home, or they're not, right? Or they can, you know, this country takes this many, this country takes this many. I mean, eventually, if we don't do something about the climate and if we have a war close to the border, you won't be able to. That's just gonna. It will be. It can be complete chaos, right? But the thing is, I mean, ever since Russia bombed Syria, right? And they really bombed Syria in a way that not even the US did, right? Where, it was pretty clear that they were targeting hospitals, they were targeting schools, they were driving migration. I don't think this is by chance, right? At the same time, they're paying and sponsoring a lot of our right-wing nationalists here, who are all too happy to go on Russian TV to talk good about Russia and all of that stuff. As this, we're seeing it here in Sweden locally, right, where you have the far right local governments. They refuse to take on immigrants, even though they have to, right? So it means that you're ending up with this where you can't solve it. It becomes a manufactured crisis, and it breeds that sort of nationalism, right? That in the end turns something that is absolutely doable for us into something that is completely impossible. And it's definitely going to break apart the European Union. And it worked really well. I mean, you saw how the European Union completely almost shattered from the last wave of immigrants, right? Where it's just complete arguments of how you're going to do it, and you have these nationalist governments who are threatening to who are doing X, Y, and they're breaking the laws, and you have the moderate and the liberals who are just saying, oh, well, maybe we couldn't, I don't know, let's not be rough on them, maybe they did their best, this sort of things. And of course, it's a little bit ironic that Poland comes to beg for European help now, but this is the point where Europe should actually help and say, we have a common border, right? I mean, the best thing would be if we built a place for them to seek asylum, right? That people can do asylum to Europe, right? And that it could actually be handled. But the way that we are reacting is more, or at least it seems like Poland is reacting, is just by turning this into a military situation. Which obviously, at any point, I mean, like the Cold War, right? Any point could escalate into a conflict.
Yeah, and again, like you said, manufactured crisis, and that's pretty important since a lot of our crises are kind of manufactured, or like we have like willfully let them get this bad, or let them get to this let them get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this isn't like some kind of a natural process where people come in and we start building walls on the borders. Like that's not something that just automatically happens.
Yeah.
We could be choosing to, I don't know, we've known about, say, climate. We've known about like the drivers and the patterns of migration for like a good while. So we could have chosen to actually pour like a lot of our resources into solving the problem. The way the pandemic showed us that they can absolutely just turn on like the money spouts and keep them on for now going on 2 years soon, and the world, without the world ending, they can absolutely do that, and they can absolutely get something cobbled together to direct it into recovery, like to at least partially solving some of the problems.
No, but we are living with very weak states and strong corporations.
Not to. This is a choice. Like there is no law of nature that says that we can't handle the extra hundreds or even like tens of thousands of people.
No, and particularly if you look at the whole EU, I mean, we this is not a problem, but we are we're making it one. And it's interesting to read the letter from Donald Tusk, the EPP president, right? To all European leaders, I'm addressing you, leaders of the EU member states, with an earnest appeal for full solidarity with Poland and Lithuania in the face of the growing crisis on the border with Belarus. Irrespective of your views regarding migration and your evaluation of the internal situation in Poland, we must, I underline, we must, as a political community, use all available means to pressure in order to contain the escalation of tensions on the eastern border of the Union. For all, it should already be clear that this crisis has been cynically provoked by Alexander Lukashenko, whose goal is to destabilize Poland, Lithuania, and the whole of the Union. At any time, the situation may get out of control. The fundamental safety and security of our community are at stake. There is no more time or space to hesitation. What we need are tough decisions vis-à-vis Minsk and support for Poland and Lithuania. Lack of reaction or postponing will only embolden provocateurs and their protectors and may lead to dramatic, difficult to predict consequences. I am counting on your wisdom and determination.
I'm not sure I'm a fan of how all he's calling for is full solidarity without really defining what it's going to mean. Like,
and this is
should we send all of our like pre-packaged like wall building sets to them, or what?
Exactly. I mean, this is the huge problem. This is what I'm talking about. There is a complete lack of also political leadership. I mean, these are strong words, but these, like all of our politicians, all they know is how to say nothing with a lot of nice words. That's all they've ever learned. Like, there's got to be a plan of action and something that we choose to do.
So it's the last place where you want to expect any kind of a spine.
No, I mean that's true, but I mean I just find it so simple. We're supposed to do something, unclear what, but we need to be strong. I mean, this is like this sort of. I mean, let's help Poland. Let's help them. Let's help them to build a European asylum centers along the. Let's do it along all of European borders. Right? Or we help to process this in a European way. I mean, you need a political solution. The problem is they don't have a political solution. And also this sort of terminology is escalating in its very existence. Like if you are Russia, you know, and I'm no fan of Putin, but you could understand all of his actions from simple geopolitical considerations. From his perspective, the European Union and NATO, which is its enemy, okay? This is their enemy. And it's been made clear over and over and over again that NATO is an enemy, right? Is closing in on their borders. Like that's the way you gotta see it from a Russian perspective. And Ukraine is just a no-no. that's the motherland of Russia. Like that's just the heartland of Russia, in the way that a lot of them see it, and that means that it's the fact that all of these ex-Soviet, ex-Russian states are now sovereign countries is problematic enough, and they're generally viewed not as independent countries, but actually as member states of the larger Russia, right? This is their absolute sphere of interest, you know, like, so, you know, like when you are sanctioning Belarus, you know, that's an escalation. What do? Well, I mean, it so happens that we are no longer going to stop people from actually trying to get to you. And in fact, we're going to help them to get to you. They don't want to stay here anyway. Now that's your problem. You deal with it. Why should we help you? Right? Of course, this is breaking all forms of international conventions, but then again, we are not following them either. And this again kind of goes back to a UN that is completely crippled and no one cares. And I mean, we haven't cared about any form of the, I mean, we don't care about those laws and regulations, and we have shown a neglect for them since they were founded in the West. Might makes right. That's the language that NATO and US has been speaking all the time. For anyone who has been outside, maybe if you live in the West, you believe that we fight for democracy, but that's not what people believe. And you know, more and more the last 30 or 40 years, it become pretty clear that we're fighting for capital and not even for anything else. Like we kind of go back to kind of tie that together. And I think this letter is a great representation of that.
In face of all this doom and gloom, like, we're looking at like 2 weeks of just doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Not that we're like super cheery here normally either.
Goddamn doomer streams every time.
But I guess we could make the promise that we're going to try to look for some like bright spots, just maybe, I don't know, organizing going on in the grassroots on the ground, like stuff people are doing, for instance, to help migrants, or just organize their like neglected communities, anything, like, because stuff is going on, it's just not being reported by mainstream media. Because that's sus, that's like mutual aid, that's suspicious, and just people getting things done just for the sake of their community, not for some,
it's
sexy agenda. That's not interesting, and that's also kind of sus.
Maybe we can promise next stream not so much doom.
God forbid, that's the most suspicious thing of all.
Yeah, you're helping this invasion, this big-hearted moron leftist people. But yeah, maybe a little bit. We can promise a little bit more positive news next week.
People are causing this situation. Obviously.
Yeah, of course. That's why it's completely okay
Russia has nothing to do with it.
Get rid of the socialists first.
Yeah.
Typical fascist propaganda.
Can we some eye bleach, please?
Yeah. Did you?
That's the bottom 3 are stuff we haven't looked at, I think.
Seal cats.
That's pictures, and the others are videos. Yeah, this is a nice one. Long thread.
Nice.
There are these species hybrids, such as Klingon here.
Yes.
Different species, but still.
What the hell? Sorry? Get your legs right.
It's amazing, yeah. Legs.
Yeah.
You can actually go open the main post and go down the replies. There's like dozens of these. This is the best.
This one. The fuck?
Look at them, like there's a yoga cat next to it. I'm pretty sure that's like one of the moves you did on the stream.
True.
Okay.
Oh no. These cats, they broke.
Yeah, broken cats.
Yeah, cute though. Yeah, dogs do this occasionally. I haven't seen that many cats. Oh, this one. Hello, dude. I mean, this is such a relaxed way of being. This is like cats that have completely given up on the fact that they should be able to get up quick and get out of the way. Fuck that shit. I'm not.
The tail is still like almost like straight angle.
It's like
not quite.
Yeah, it's got some messages connecting to the cat base.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I think the Finnish bear we've watched a couple of times.
Oh no, it's not the bear you think it is.
Ah. Ooh.
A bear who was rescued this summer, and there's this like bear man who is known for like keeping some like I don't know semi-domesticated bears who couldn't make it in the wild, and also raising orphans and stuff. This year's cub, and he's starting to grow up, but kind of blank still.
He's an old dude, yeah?
Yeah.
Is it already that snowy in the north? Yeah.
In the north, yeah. First snow in the north was like weeks ago. Quite early.
He is like 40 years old, by the way.
In the forest and also enjoy a good cup of coffee while taking a break.
Joo, juusukahvi on hyvä. Kaikki metsurit juopi tätä. Niin.
Drinking coffee.
Juopi sitä. Kun se tulee se metsuri sitten, kuulitko sinä?
They're indoctrinated.
Oh my god. I wonder at what point it becomes dangerous, right? Keeping a beer. Does he eventually let them? I mean, how do you get them to be wild again? So it got to be such a job. What is he saying? Is he just cursing? That's what I'm imagining.
Like, oh, it's so nice, isn't it? Like, so pleasant.
No, that's not how I imagine Finnish old men. They should just curse and be rude to everything.
No, he's super chill. He's always super chill. Just like handling the bears. Like,
okay.
Slide this down when he needs to, but just palling around with them for the most part.
God, the energy of this bear.
Yeah. I mean, even the grown ones, they can climb trees and like stand on their hind legs and take a few steps even. So the younger ones are really agile.
Nice.
I mean, you can't outrun a bear. There's a reason one of the like people give the advice to sometimes just play dead.
Yeah, we got another smooth criminal, huh?
Yeah.
Let's check it out. Oh yeah.
В моей лунке моя рыба. Моя рыба в лунке лежит. В лунке моя рыба. Что ты будешь делать? Что за наглость, а?
So pretty.
Yeah.
Вот ты наглый, а? Вот ты наглый. Что ты будешь делать? Как так можно?
Almost like
Ну нельзя быть таким наглым. Парень, не наглей так сильно. Ну куда ты? Кто тебя... Блин.
Very similar
Вот
to
ты
the bear
нахуй,
video,
а? Как так
like
можно?
the original
Не
one.
ешь.
Huh?
Не ешь. Не ешь. Фу! Это мой.
Oh my god, this is just annoying to
It's
watch.
very similar to the one bear video where the guy just curses at the bear.
Yeah. But I mean, he wants it to steal it, clearly. It's just annoying it
Yeah.
right now.
Моя рыба, говорю. Моя. Лунка моя, рыба моя.
Dude, please.
Yeah.
Ну ты кадр. Ладно, бери. Молодец. Считай, что выкопал. Это тебе за фокус. С выкапыванием. Красавчик.
You can tell how the small fish was like frozen,
Yeah.
so like stiff.
Yeah. Fox activates cute paw scratches. Russian. Can't argue with that. You're right.
Okay then.
An outstanding move. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Did we have anything else that was important today? And relatively short. I don't think so. It's so much doom. I don't even want to.
Yeah, there is a lot of doom.
Yeah, let's not. We
only
try to
thing
find better
I-
news for next.
Yeah, there was EU general monitoring, not new, but they're still trying to do it, and they're making progress with it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And again, if interested, like it's basically a site called Netzpolitik, and probably written by Patrick Bayer, one of the Pirate MEPs, or somehow associated with him. So you can Google chat control and EU. You're going to find explainers. Basically, they want, if you remember the Apple case just a while ago, of them wanting to start scanning people's devices in case there's nasty stuff in there involving children. This is the same thing. They're pushing it through, I think, the EU level in like several different.
It's hopeless. I mean, the moment it's struck down, they just come back with another one. I wonder what sort of organizations are behind this. It's like every time you have like a 4-year-old
like
victory.
General monitoring, which is against some of the current digital services act. Basically, those are being rewritten, so that's why they are pushing for it so hard this term, since the packages, like the law packages that basically go against this kind of shit, are being reevaluated and rewritten. So they are seeing their chance to like get as much of this shit included and maybe even overturn and get some exceptions to the to just ruin the clause that used to say that you can't have platforms, you can't make the platforms obliged to like monitor everything that goes on.
Yeah. Well,
they're trying to overturn, and this is what all this, this is what the upload filters were about, and what they're still maybe fighting cases over, and this is what all this like chat control and like automatic scanning and filtering things are about. It's the same shit. They want the same mechanisms. Once they're in, they can just like, we're already doing this. You just have to let us, like, why can't we just use it for this other thing as well?
Yeah, and we can.
So we're nothing like the few things that we are able to now do unmonitored or like privately are going to be gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good that there are some people fighting this, but I think it's not going to happen
or child sexual
eventually.
abuse. It's always one of those two things.
Yes,
that's the card they dig up when everything else fails, and they usually get their way.
Yeah.
It makes it really hard to argue against. I mean, are you for child sexual abuse? Are you for terrorism?
Yes.
Do you really want to take that stance? The pirate MEPs who are involved in like some of the key committees on this, that are working on these, these laws, they are like, they've basically already been branded by like many of the fellow MEPs as creeps or like criminals for being opposed to general monitoring. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Same
Really
old
tough
story.
fight to. It's a huge uphill battle. Like, it's a really tough battle to fight to this win.
Yeah. Yeah. To doom a little bit, we are clearly failing or losing most of those battles right now.
But yeah, it's not a reason to give up. Like, we still have to make the arguments against. We still have to try to say that, like, this is not, like, you're claiming you're doing this because of this thing, but this isn't the best way, an efficient way, or a proportionate way to deal with this problem. Often, many of those are true. Like, for specific kinds of crime, like just automatic content recognition, it's going to give you like a shit ton of stuff that's like unproblematic, or just it's not. It's going to like it's not. It's still going to give you. It's going to go through a huge haystack, give you a slightly smaller haystack, and then maybe the officials who get to look at the haystack, like, it's a very optimistic like assumption that they actually have enough resources to actually somehow like benefit of the reduction in haystack size. And even beyond that, the recognition is going to, like, the haystack, obviously most of it is going to be not criminal stuff. A lot of it's going to be not like perfectly legal, and even like not even like morally problematic or like borderline stuff. It's just going to be something that tripped the algorithm, something that tripped the filter, and that's also why it's not automatically going to solve crimes to have this kind of system in place. And like, if you're going to have to give resources to, say, the police to solve this kind of crime, like, maybe just give them the resources. These things are solved through usually more traditional methods.
Yeah.
There's a whole methodology to like tracking down these like communities and like organized rings that produce this stuff.
Yeah.
And also there's a whole methodology and a whole like industry probably, or like an academic semi-academic industry to studying radicalization and terrorism as well. Like, the answer isn't, it's never the most efficient way to just, like, never believe them when they say that this is the only way or the most efficient way to deal with these problems. Because it isn't. Just at best, it's going to reduce the size of the haystack, and it's going to cause trouble to a ton of people who are doing nothing wrong.
Primarily, it's just going to be used to survey, get more data and control.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
anyway,
that's what it's actually going to end up doing.
Yeah. And that is the point.
Motivating many of the officials who are pushing for this.
Yes. Anyway, yeah. No more doom now. I can't stand it. Hopefully next week we can try to. We have to try to select a better media diet. Clearly, but it also probably actually does reflect that we're moving in a very, very, very quick way right now, in directions that is, well, let's just, it's not good ways. That's for sure. But that's the way it is. And not much we can do about it, to be honest. We can talk about it, potentially. Maybe vote about it. And in front of all, if you want to do something, organize on a local level. Because that is probably the most productive. Anyhow.
People who are paying attention to the same kinds of things you are, or who are passionate about the same things, or concerned, and just organize. Find out something you can do.
Yeah. But good. Well,
it's the only way. Like, it's actually one of the only ways to feel less doomy about things. Find like-minded people and figure out something you can do.
With that said, we'll be back next week, next Wednesday, probably at 9 o'clock, not a little bit earlier. And with a little bit more positive news, maybe. Tomorrow is Thursday. As far as I know. Actually, I don't think... I don't know. Maybe it's SIC tomorrow. The syndicalist will come. Or maybe it's not. I can't remember if it was this week or next week now. But that's it for tonight. For those of you... Myra is still streaming, so go there. I'm not going to raid her because we have too few viewers. They're going to be sad. But you can go there on your own. And
if you're not already there.
If you're not already there, yeah.
I'm assuming most of you are.
Yes, probably. Go check her gaming night out. And we'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Bye-bye and good night.
PTV, oberoende, piratistisk media, skapad och finansierad av tittarna.